My fellow South Africans, please do not fall for the silly idea that you're always hearing from communist fools who want you to hate the things that keep our country running up to this day. Welcome to Citizen Concerned, where we remind you to beware of the comrades. Please subscribe, like, and share the video with other citizens.
As part of a drastic restructuring process, the South African Post Office has sent out thousands of retrenchment letters. This highlights the operational and financial turmoil that has plagued the organization for years.
I know we're always hearing it. The private sector is evil. The private sector this and that. Don't fall for it. They say these things because if they don't say them, these people will serve no purpose. All they know is to steal, loot, and destroy. They do not know how to build. They do not know what it takes to create companies that are legit and profitable. If it was not for the private sector, most of us would have not been employed right now. If it was not for the private sector, most of us would not have certain services. If it was not for the private sector, most of us would have been starving to death. I thought about this as I was reading about the Post Office of South Africa. Our post office used to have a monopoly on the postal services in South Africa. The private sector was not there to destroy the National Post. The ANC did that all by themselves. Tell me this. When was the last time you went to a functioning post office? There was a post office that was here where I stay. It disappeared. There was another post office where I used to stay. It also disappeared. The post offices of South Africa used to be a symbol of pride, employing tens of thousands of people. But now they are firing people and branches are closing.
The minister says despite the current challenges the post office faces, the public can still expect to receive services such as their letter post, courier packages, renew their vehicle licenses, as well as withdraw their social grant through the post office. The post office restructuring will see more branches closed, leading to job losses, reported to be 4,700.
If it was not for private companies like PEP, Korea Aids, Aramex, DPD Laser, Mr. D, or even Uber, and many others, we would have been suffering right now. There are hundreds of thousands of business people, some small, some medium, and some large, that depend on all these companies. When I tried to do a business of buying and selling goods, I relied heavily on PEP or Aramex via Pick n Pay to deliver the items to my customers. These are companies that are willing to ship goods for small businesses and simple citizens who just want to send something to a friend, a customer, or a loved one. Instead of these private companies who we are using right now, delivery services could have been provided by the post office.
Celebrating 50 years journey since it delivered its first letter in the country. Bicycles were the drivers of postal services to ensure delivery. The advent of technology has introduced new innovations, but old communication tools haven't become completely obsolete.
For most of you, my age and younger, we may not even know much about the kind of impact that the post office had on the lives of many citizens of this nation of ours. Back before the time of WhatsApp and email or even cell phones, there was the post office. People wrote letters. They sent money and goods to each other using the post office. All that has collapsed with the ANC being in charge. The damage that the ANC has brought to this country is not a small issue. The ANC has destroyed lives of citizens and it has destroyed our beloved post office. The post office would take people's letters and parcels, put them on trains or in trucks and bakkies. They would be circulated to all corners of South Africa. And then a postman would go around delivering the goods to the different places. Consider the number of people that have lost their jobs as a result of the crumbling of the post office, the convenience and confidence lost by the citizens. When was the last time you saw anything being delivered to you from the post office? Many of us use the post office only when we have no other choice. The Post Office of South Africa was the first company in South Africa to provide courier services, but the ANC have allowed it to die. We all see the bakkies and bikes delivering parcels around South Africa. All that could have been done by the post office. Today, when people send documents, they don't go to the post office anymore. All the money going to PEP, Aramex, Skynet and all other courier companies is money that could have been made by the post office, by the public sector. Today, if you are sent parcels using the post office, the letter or goods will take forever to arrive. Some of the goods are even being stolen within the post office system.
They don't call it snail mail for nothing. A Durban family recently received a long-forgotten international parcel after 13 years.
The parcel was sent when Sanya's daughter, Maria, was just born. And as the Honeycombs later found out, it was from Sanya's dad in New York.
He said, you know what? That's my parcel that went missing. He straight away said, now I remember.
So now it's the moment of realization.
Yes, this parcel went missing. I can't believe it, you got it.
It was filled with now outdated magazines, shoes, congratulatory cards, and lots of tea. Most of the contents were in fairly good condition, save for a few items.
The government did not keep the discipline that was within the service. The government allowed poor management. They allowed laziness, theft, disorderliness, and tackiness into the post office. They are communists who pretend to accept capitalism, so the entire system is dying out. Our post office is dead. It will not survive because it is owned by an incompetent government. To those of you who keep voting ANC and those of you who want to vote for the EFF, please keep that in mind. The Comrades, our very own communists, destroyed this national treasure.
Thousands of packages left unclaimed at the South African Post Office will be auctioned today.
It's literally anything you can think of, Bradin, from hair products to clothing and kitchenware and books even. The goods that have been unclaimed for about a year at the post office that would be auctioned here today. And in fact, I have with me Jade from the auctioning company. Thank you so much. I'm seeing that we have, kiddie toys here. We have a kitchenware, Rolex watches. I mean, the list is quite vast.
There's only one reason why we don't cry too much about the post office as South African citizens. The only reason most of us do not feel the pain of the failures of the post office, and it is simple. We are not sending or receiving letters through the post office anymore. We are benefiting from the services of the private sector. If we need to send our products to anyone across the country, we now use the private sector. Although most of us are not feeling the effects of the destruction of the post office too much, the sad part is because of the ANC and its poor management, we are now in a situation where thousands of jobs are being lost. If the post office was being run like a business, it would have been performing well and making a profit as well, like the private delivery companies we are currently using. Remember, the post office was not free even when it was performing well. To send letters, you had to buy stamps. Now we must pay the private sector to transport our documents and goods. Again, I will say it. Most of you have not noticed the slow destruction of the post office because you use a private sector now. Emails, WhatsApp, cell phones, all created by the private sector have saved us from these problems. If our country still relied on the post office, we would have been suffering. Right now, we feel it when it comes to the electricity and water because there is no one else who's making a plan for us in the private sector. Do not be lied to. We need the private sector. It is the one that allows for the government to pay its employees. It is the one that keeps funding the companies such as Eskom and Transnet through taxes. If not for that, where would Eskom, Transnet, SAA and other SOEs be? Without the private sector, we would have turned into Cuba. We need them to involve the private sector if we are going to survive. Just like what happened with Telkom. Telkom was once into telephones. Telephones via copper cables are a thing of the past now. There are very few locations that still have copper cables for Telkom. Fiber is now a thing. Cell phones are now a thing. Instead of dying like the post office did, Telkom is still surviving. They succeed. They are keeping with the times, and if they mess around, they will lose customers to better performers. They were slow, but still they did better than Transnet and Eskom. The government still holds majority shares of the company, a little over 50%, but the private sector is there to help within the same company. There are definitely bad apples within the private sector, but their theft is nothing compared to the incompetence in the state-owned companies. The state-owned companies being mismanaged by the government. Fun fact, did you know that the post office was once a part of Telkom? They were under one company which was called the Department of Posts and Telecommunications. They were broken up, and while the government sold a little over 40% of the shares in Telkom to a private company, they kept 100% of the South African post office. And it says one thing, we all need the private sector. Don't listen to the communists who are simply wolves in sheep's clothing. They're here to steal, loot, and destroy. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, please like the video, and share it with other citizens. I'm Katlaro. This is Citizen Concerned, and until next time, beware of the comrades.